I'm Chris Lapados at Anastasiopoulos. This is Man Free World. That portal is still not closed. Need some help on that. Somebody could give me a tip. Today, I want to be talking about the Law of One, which I am a student of, and it seems to be a cult with no leader and no meetings, and it's really hard to get in touch with anybody that knows anything about this stuff. But there is one man, Scott Mandelker, who's been talking about the Law of One for a very long time. And he intentionally puts up certain things that, unless you're going to be okay with certain things right away, that you're probably not going to be interested in his material, because he lets you know right up front what the deal is, what's going on. He's talking here about fourth dimensional beings, fourth density beings. Let me be really clear with my words. So in the Law of One, they have a model, where Rod gives a model of the state of consciousness, which starts at the pre-atomic level, which is the baseline of our universe, which is the subatomic cosmic phone, which is actually the body of this universe. And they're built up into minerals. That's first density. Second density is so this is a rudimentary type of consciousness, like the initial state of consciousness, the having a individuated state of a molecule and an atom, and then combining together with other atoms is a sort of kind of consciousness. And then it gets into the plant kingdom, which is another level up of consciousness, still a group consciousness. But it is starting to individuate, because you have individual plants who have their own experience of this whole that's whole put together. And then you have the next level up, which is the stage before third density consciousness, which is individuated again. So this goes back to the completely into the groups. Everything's running on autopilot. Everything's running on instinct for the most part, until you graduate up into this level, which then becomes individuated again. Your consciousness becomes, I'm just inside this one little body. It's just me here, and I am an individuated state of consciousness. And then one up from there, they have this ET thing, which really is kind of not actually good representation. But that's where we enter the group consciousness again. So we become telepathic. We become aware, and we kind of more running on a level of instinct, about awareness of our individuated state as well as the group state. Although at this level, the group does tend to take over again. So we're talking about the beings that inhabit the level here, which are vibrating. And it's really not clear how this works, but it seems to be they are in our universe as well as outside it. They seem to be able to slip through the time field somehow, or vibrate so quickly that they disappear from this third density awareness. And they sometimes interfere with they intersect with our reality to let us know stuff, either from the negative side, which is pretty much what our world is populated with, and super easy access, because they want to use our energy and siphon off us. And then there's the positives, which also for the amount that the legs interject, the positives can also interject, and they do it in a different way. We're going to go to a little bit of Scott. I've got this sped up to 1.5x, and you can go listen to his whole works. He's got hundreds of videos about this stuff.
And here's the very unsentimental statement of what the negatives are doing. 40 negative and astral plane entities are doing in the transmission. What they're transmitting when it's non-technical, or I guess when it's technical, it's the means to do this control. Concerning service of manipulating others, the left-hand path is all about manipulation. So they may experience service towards the other self. So it's basically enslaving, so that the slaves learn the value of enslavement.
Yeah, so that's the service that the negatives are providing. It was kind of a weird way of putting it, but in their mind, they're letting us know, and this is why the Council of Saturn, who are managing this group of karmic repeaters, trying to get them to soul progress the best way, which I don't really agree with a lot of their decisions, but who am I? I'm just a little peon. So the Council of Saturn, they're allowing certain things to happen here, and they have allowed these negatives. They're on a leash, but they're allowing the negatives to teach this group of chronic repeaters who was all about enslaving and warring what it feels like to be completely enslaved and completely helpless.
Enslaving to teach enslavement. And you see, Raw can't talk emotionally. They're not that level. They're way beyond. But there's a certain intensity that we have here because we're in the carne, and it's not unuseful. So long as there's a balance between the emotionless and the carefully or moderately or somewhat balanced emotional, if there's even such a thing. So uh, the ways of manipulating, controlling, enslaving others, so that they may experience the nature of service to self or the negative path and its working. That then, though through that experience, they can appreciate the value of manipulating, controlling, and enslaving yet others. These entities thus would become oriented towards service to self if they take up what's being offered.
Yeah, so that's the offer from the negatives is to do the service of self path, which is a valid path. It's allowed in this free will universe because it allows us to fully understand what it means to be a being and have a soul and to be awake in this reality and to more deeply understand the mind of the creator, the infinite creator.
But then there's the issue of positive or negative at base, and that's another matter. But those entities enslaved, preferably, hopefully, in accord with what the negatives seek, would then become oriented themselves or value control, manipulation, and enslaving others, and then do so to control and manipulate yet others, so that they in turn might experience service to themselves. So they're giving the opportunity.
It's basically a Ponzi scheme of teaching slavery. And I'm going to do a show about these groups you can get involved with that will teach you how to make $1 million or whatever like that. And it's basically these groups is basically this is what's going on inside. They teach you how to manipulate others to so you can create your downline, right? And create more people that manipulate others to to teach. And the whole thing that's allowed here is because in the end, everyone's being taught that gets involved with this stuff. It's like, hey, you really can't do this. This is not a sustainable thing, and you're definitely gonna have to reverse all this at some point.
Of teaching the ways of enslavement by control and manipulation, by physical force and mental cleverness, by schemata, some devious um, plans and physical force to teach the joy of evil.
Yeah, so that's on my other channel if you can find it. I'm going through the age of the scam, and I'm writing a book about it, just like jump off points of all the different devious ways that the negatives are teaching us this valuable lesson.
If you could say it that way, the value of controlling and manipulating and enslaving as a way of living, as a lifestyle
Yeah, it sucks.
choice. So, okay, that's a very high level, dispassionate, unsentimental, quite technical understanding, and it's very subtle. It doesn't really capture the contemptible aspects of what's going on, lying through your teeth and treachery, treachery and manipulation onto the destruction of a mind and spirit complex.
So mind spirit complex is a being that is basically one of these things. As you come through, as the soul progresses through, on individuates and group, goes to individuates and group, and individuates and group, and individuates and group. And here's the group one, and here's the individual one again, the fifth density wizards, who are so it goes. So you're an individual from the time you become a quark or subatomic particle, whatever that's the fluctuation of the void, as you individuate and become a droplet, and then and back up to the ever of all things that is the body again of that thing. So this is not unconnected, and you can see this shape here is this toroidal shape that just completely circulates around and around and around. So that's what he's talking about.
It's reasonably met with outrage or shock and horror, which is not very technical or not very unsentimental, but it's part of what's the nature of the phenomenon. Because
Yeah, it's horrific. It's horrific. It's like, whoa. Once you can see what's going on, you take the blue pill stuff, and it's not all good guys, bad guys. It's like the things that are happening here with these negatives. It's just like, wow, dude, you guys are completely balls out now. So that means also lets me know that this is all about to end or coming to a close. soon. We don't know how long, 2030, 2040, maybe 2100, who knows. But this is all completely unsustainable.
There's how it is here, and then its essential philosophy. The essential, Ra's giving the philosophy of polarized interdimensional transmission. The philosophy, the nature, the ontology of interdimensional communication.
Right. So he's talking about how these higher dimensional beings, negative and positive, both communicate to us and let us know. And the styles of communication they have indicate their polarity.
What exactly is happening? It's obviously morally polarized, positive, negative, but it's not simply you ask, I want to help, or you ask, and for the negatives, I want to control the one who asks, and for the positives, I'm simply happy to help that you're learning and growing in light too. So they're the intentions of the givers, but what's actually being given by positive and negatively oriented higher dimensional beings, whether they know it or not. Certainly, 40 negative may or may not have great wisdom. Usually, their wisdom comes later, the wisdom of the big picture in which they live.
Yeah. So fourth density, even though it's a longer path, because you gotta on the fourth. So there's there's the polarity right down the middle, split right down the middle. One is the left hand path, one is the right hand path. The left hand path is a service to self, and the right hand path is service to others. And that choice happens right here between the barrier between third and fourth density. That's why we're dealing with right now so much catalyst or all these crazy events we have to work through. Is we're being given catalysts all the time to, hey, which way are you going to go with this? Are you going to join the negatives, which lots of advertisements everywhere, get on board, make $1 billion, or are you going to do this service to all route, which is you got to deal with being a slave for a while. You're going to have to deal with all this other bullshit. Or is there another path in there? No, there's only two paths. You can choose not to decide. That's what's called the chronic repeater, and that's most of the people here. And Ross says it's Scott says it's 98% of the people here are going to repeat. And he says that's up from of 99% we're going to repeat, 99.9% already. So now it's 98%. So some people are waking up. We'll see.
The greater level here is that what the response to calling, i.e. higher dimensional telepathic transmission, polarized in accord with the two paths, and calling of humans on the two paths.
So what he's talking about is people that are in their minds, they're having a hard time, and who do they call out for? Do they call out for someone to help them understand what's going on so they can improve themselves, so they can work through this and become a better person after this is all through? Or are they going, how can I fuck people over? How can I get more for me? How can I screw people? And that's communing with the demonic side, which it's crowded here. Those guys are all over the place. If you looked at the work of Dr. Marzinski talking about his work inside these mental institutions, talking and actually asking people who are having schizophrenic episodes and are hearing voices. What are these voices saying? Quite interesting what they're actually saying.
It comes from the idea that I give what I wish you to value. You value what you're seeking. You're seeking what you value. And by giving you what you value, giving you what you seek that you're valuing, you may more fully and more strongly value it. It's nourishing seeking. It's feeding spiritual seeking on the two paths, which is soul evolution seeking continued development. I teach you the doing is the teaching, not simply there's probably a better way of explaining this, but I'm not simply.
Yeah, so what he's trying to say, he said this before many times, and I'm curious why he's fumbling over this, is because so teaching is doing is teaching. So you teach by doing, you're doing by teaching, and it's called Rock says teach learning. So you learn by teaching it, and you teach by learning it. So it goes back and forth. There's not just a teacher learning, it's a learner teaching. It's always a two-way thing, and that's what he's trying to get at.
Both higher dimensional sources, positive and negative, are not only giving content, but the very giving of content instructs the ways of that path.
So the style of how the communication happens is also part of the communication. The medium is the message.
Kind of subtle matter. And so
not that subtle, it's actually quite apparent. It's just funny that humans have been trained by the negatives to ignore this stuff.
uh, when we're helping others, we're also teaching the nature of helping. When the negatives are controlling, they're teaching not only the ways of controlling, uh, but strengthening the commitment to controlling of those that are receiving their transmission. So, okay, what about black magic? Well, yeah, rituals and exercises seeking power and information on the negative path would be called black magic. Black magic is a big topic, obviously, as much as white magic. White and black, obviously, is not a body skin color. It's not integumental. Not integumental. It's associated with love or no love, or how much love light and how blocked love light.
Just the polarization. Are you doing stuff just for you and fuck everybody, or are you doing it stuff like when you're considering other people when you do stuff? I mean, even so, Ross says you don't have to do 51%. You don't have to do 100%. You don't have to be a fucking saint. That's the thing that's I really appreciate about the raw material is because this is a gray universe. It's a free will universe, so some things just don't have a good choice, and there is no 100% black and white, like 100% like pure one way or another. That's the difficulty here. Is the plane that we come from. This plane out here is pure. It's pure bliss, pure love, and then there's another plane of existence, of course, that is pure darkness, and that's the recycling bin. It doesn't really last very long. The universe is the physical universe is always in motion. There's never anything completely dark here. And anything that wants to go live in a place that's completely dark eventually disappears of its own accord. And the mercy of the whole thing is like, if you want to be zero, you could be zero. Okay. You could be zero. There's places to be zero. I don't know if it's permanent, though. Ross seems to think that it's permanent. Like there is a recycling bin that the soul goes to and it's over. But I have a hard time thinking that because maybe it is in this universe. It'll be zero from the start and zero to the end. I'm sure there's beings that have done that. That still have a soul existence outside the material universe. So I'm not sure if the recycle bin is a real thing. Because there's people that want to, there are entities that are so dark, they want to incarnate at zero at the beginning of the material universe, have a 10 trillion years of experience of zero, and then come out the other side and go, I didn't do anything. I didn't get affected at all. I'm like, okay. All right, buddy.
But, excuse me, yes, of course, Orion aids so-called negatively oriented here. Whether they aid them or not, however, Ross seems to imply, they would be concerning themselves with the negative path anyway. And then is the point that Lawrence considered essential, that I think were very important, that is actually very important for understanding what's going on here. There are many upon the so-called inner planes also which are negatively oriented, and thus available as inner teachers or guides and so-called possessors of certain souls who seek this distortion of certain stuff.
Yeah, so that's what Dr. Marzinski discovered, and Law of One just talks about. Yeah, there's all these entities. There's a bunch of them here. They're just right outside our realm of awareness. So they do have to get energy. It does take them energy to impact our level of reality here. So they have to like get the energy from someplace else. So that's what all the fear shit is. They somehow use that as a power source. I don't really want to know how it works, but I know that's what they use. So
astral possession, negative entity attachment, is very real. It's not provable, but it's very real.
Well, Dr. Marzinski, I think, proved it.
And I have one little flam there.
So one thing, if you're going to listen to Scott a lot, Mandelker, he has something going on with his throat. It's been there for his whole life. And it really only acts up when he starts talking about this stuff. So his understanding is that, and what he's been told or whatever, is that he's being attacked by the fifth dimension at the throat chakra. So he has a hard time communicating these things because the negatives are like, you can't say that, stop. So they're always attacking him. He does discuss this in a couple episodes, but he doesn't really talk about it much at all. But that's what's going on. So that's why you have to forgive him when it's throat clearing. It's like, that for me, it's like that's a signal. It's like, shut up and pay attention because he's just about to tell you some real deal shit, or he is telling you the real deal stuff right now.
The phrase, there are many upon your so-called inner planes. There are many upon the inner planes. Let's strip away their language to some degree. Let's superfluous. Dis-superfluous. There are many in the inner
De-obfusticate.
planes, meaning hell realm, hungry ghost realm. It's basically
So Hungry Ghost is Buddhist thing. It's all part of the. It's like it's not part of the raw material, but Scott is bringing in multiple religious faiths and mystic traditions all together, and that's why it's such a great thing to listen to because he is a big fan of Law of One, and he brings all these things together, and it ties into Law of One, which ties together a lot of the details and things that have been lost over time for these faiths, and he brings it into it like a more modern context, a more modern understanding, and he also lets you know what he doesn't know. He doesn't understand what the hell's going on 100%. He says we'll find out eventually. Don't worry, but like there's a bunch of stuff in here that's still super odd.
The astral dimensions closest to the physical, that are considerably subterranean, physically coincidental, coterminous with the underground, physical underground, subterranean. That's why caverns and caves and deep underground, there are negative entities. But this is from the book Friends, UFO Friends and Foe, Trevor. Trevor.
And the loved one touches on it a little bit, but it's sort of like, yeah, that's where they live. Okay, so and why do you care where they live? Yeah, they live all over the place. They're all around you all the time. It's just your orientation, your moral basis. Like, what are you trying to do in this world? Are you trying to like get it for your own and fuck everybody? Because that's the negative path, and they're always suggesting this is the way forward. Or is it service to all, where you're like, okay, I need to get mine, but I'm not gonna fuck everybody in the process.
Something. Uh, I believe I did a whole series, UFO Friend and Foe, talking about negative entities, negative ET, astral entities associated with the subterranean area. That Ross said there are many is interesting. They didn't say there are also beings upon the inner planes. They said there are many, and that probably is what caught Lawrence's attention and is possibly quite significant. What happens when heavily distorted repeating souls die? Well, a certain percent.
So when he talks about heavily distorted, it means that people have been so impacted by the events of our past lives and things that we came here from and things that we're dealing with right now that our so distortion is anything that deviates from a law of one, that we're all together here as one being, right? Anything that deflects from that is called a distortion in terms of raw. So it's sort of like a misunderstanding, basically like not seeing things clearly. How's that? A distortion. You're not seeing things clearly. How's that?
Percentage immediately go to Gehenna, the hell realm. Naraka, souls die. Well, a certain percentage immediately go to Gehenna, the hell realm. Naraka, and
so you're talking about the chronic repeaters. So most of the beings on this planet have been here before many, many times and been on other planets many, many times because we continue to not want to wake up to the fact that we're in this universe that's pretty much infinite and there's other beings here that are conscious and awake, and they are allowed to exist here and be evil if they want. We have to be okay with that. We have to also understand that the universe is filled with these beings, and that as we graduate to fourth density, like you do have a choice. Do you want to be an evil dick bastard and join that crowd on on Donkey Island, as Pinocchio says, or do you want to try the harder path, which is trying to deal with being free in a universe that allows evil?
just like Dante said, there are levels of hell, just like Howard Storm experienced, just like Dr. Louise.
So some of the people here go immediately to the hell realm because that's kind of where they start, and that is the okay. So the hell realm is just the left hand path here. either in the fourth density, there might be like this. It's really hard to understand what's going on exactly, but there seems to be a level here in the middle, right before the fifth density, where it's a holding area for people, and also the start of the left hand path on the negative side. You got the right hand path, the service to all, and the left hand path on the negative side. So it's not clear whether that first level of hell is like a way to do a penitentiary to get back on the good side. It's like, do you really want to go this way? Is this where you really want to go? Or is it the first level of the fifth density of this? Is that what's going on? It's just not clear.
Also in Astral City, No Solar experienced.
So the No Solar is like, I guess it would be the penitentiary, the penance, the spiritual realm where you just came out of the third density, you got killed somehow, and you're making choices like reviews, like which way you want to go. Did you make a mistake and get caught up to the negatives, and you want to like go back and try again, or did you already see it and you're ready to go on to the next level? It's like no solar is like this hospital zone before you graduate, and sometimes you get thrown back, and that's a repeat, or you go forward negative if you've gotten was it more than 95% service to self, which is really hard to do. You have to think about yourself 95% of the time, and less than 5% other people. And to graduate, service to all is 51% or more. Think about other people. But if you do 51%, you're still going to graduate. So that's the 40 positive, and only 2%, as far as Scott thinks right now, is going to do that when the event occurs. Okay.
There are hot hells, cold hells. There are crowded hells. There are desolate, solitary realms as well. They're all made by mind. Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, said, "Hell is other people."
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to do a talk on stupid.
Well, it depends on what the other people are, right? If they're all service to all, then it's gonna be cool. It's like that's the that's the world that Ra, I think, says we're gonna inherit if we don't get on the ships. You know, when the event occurs, the Confederation is gonna do their service, and they're gonna come pick people up that want to continue on the third density experience. And that's why I say if the ships show up, do not get on them, especially if there's a time limit.
The title will be on stupid in the future at some point, but. Hell is made by souls. Hell is made by people. So Sartre said, "Hell is people."
Hell is other people. That's what he said.
Well, I think that needs to be qualified, of course. It's a dramatically phrased statement, but it's accurate, but it's also sloppy. People who turn against soul make hell. People who know themselves as soul make heaven.
So he's just talking about the orientation of the path, moral basis. Are you here just for yourself, or are you here to fuck here for yourself to fuck everybody over? Or are you here for yourself and to be part of this whole thing together? Like, and don't. I mean, you got to take care of yourself, of course, but like, are you gonna just fuck everybody over in the process, or do you like really want to help them out and see if we can do something cooperative? It's like that's much harder.
So hell is ignorant people rejecting soul. Heaven is sincere people seeking soul. Seeking soul means seeking love and light, or love wisdom. So 3D repeaters, hell is 3D repeaters endlessly repeating. And the negatives and capitalize on that very well. So
yeah, so they're attracted to this audience. They know this. They got a captured crowd here. They know they've been playing to the same tunes for a while, and this group enjoys it.
That Ross said there are many on the inner planes negatively oriented is a bit sobering, I think, because now would there be many who are positively oriented? Possibly also. I mean, you know, are there more in heaven than hell? Are there more in the upper astral than the lower astral? I don't know, but
I really do believe it's a 95% plus positively oriented universe. But the positives do a different service. And the thing is, this group is chronic repeaters, and they really do need to feel it. And kind of like maybe get an attitude adjustment. But I don't know if they're going to get it. They're probably going to repeat. Like, these guys are just snooze button material.
But I mean, we do see how humanity is, and nearly everybody dies moderately distressed here. And that's because they're not centered, you know, with love light. And they've been miseducated and didn't realize it and didn't pull themselves out from disinformation, miseducation by their religion or by science or by the societies as a whole.
And the negatives are just really quite adept now at giving the repeaters what they want to hear in the way they want to hear it. It's always the same stupid shit over and over again.
The point, I think, is that it's very easy to fall into negativity in this world, or self-debasement, or self-harming, or harming other, or wrong speech, wrong action, wrong life.
Yeah, it's promoted as fuck, man, because the negatives have the mainstream now.
It's not difficult at all. And if you look at most folks, they have no moral compass, or they have a damaged moral compass. They have a sense that, you know, if the old lady falls down in the street, you want to help her. Or if the dog is in suffering, in pain, you don't want to strike it. You want to, you know, hold him and help him get better or something. But they're very naive and gullible and easily manipulated. So there's a basic instinctive moral sense, but they're extremely easy pickings for high-quality manipulators, or, you know, training wheels manipulators who are learning the joys of manipulation and enslavement, you can say.
Yeah, so the class of people he's talking about is this class of criminals who are picking up on all the advice that the negatives have been giving all throughout the bloodlines and all the secret societies when they're doing all those rituals. They're bringing in these entities to talk to them and give them the future. That's what's going on. So this group is preying on this mass here. This mass here. These ones kind of like this upper group may be difficult to deal with because they can kind of see through the bullshit. And of course, there's people inside here that see the bullshit. But the top 2% who've gotten like all the lessons, and they paid all the prices, and they got all the tickets to all the groups, and got all the advice and all the masterminds and all. They are totally raping this group right here. Totally taking extreme advantage of them. And they think they're good. And this group's like, yay, voting. Yay, they keep paying taxes. Yes, go bomb the hell out of those bastards. Okay.
As Ra's comment before. So there are many available. And so they do their negative, transmissions as well, and then can possess certain souls. And that's why I just make a blanket statement that any kind of any ET contact experience.
So if you ever talk to anybody that's in one of these MLMs or get caught up in one of these, like the Bitcoin hype or these hype cycles, that you can tell you when you talk to them, that's what it looks like when they've been taken by the negatives.
In which the person believes that their body is being taken, not just taken to a ship, but taken and manipulated and probed and implanted.
Yeah, he's talking about the abduction stuff. That's totally real as well.
I think is most likely a negative contact of some sort.
Well, it's a combination, right? It's a combination of negative contact, and then they go, okay, you can't do that anymore. You have to do. We have to. We'll do it for you. We'll make sure we do it better, and blah blah blah. So it's like this combination of things because they have to have treaties with these beings for flesh and blood and all that baloney.
Could have been negative ET, could be negative inner planes, but there's much going on in the negative plane, on the inner planes, available for those for wrong thinking, wrongdoing. So when we are caught in some pain and misunderstanding, we want to lash out, or we're greedy in a certain very distorted way, there are more than a few invisible entities to amp up our wrong speech, wrong action.
Right, they'll give us suggestions. They'll encourage us. They'll actually tell us things in the future. Dr. Marzinski goes in detail about how this stuff works, and it's quite fascinating and scary as hell, but only if you're out trying to fuck people over does it scary. If you're not trying out fucking people over and you'll take the hit, you'll do the right thing, even if it's a detrimental to you. If you're that kind of person that'll do the right thing even when you'll be punished for it, okay, you might be polarized positively. But if you're gonna push it off onto somebody else, oh yeah, you're done. You're service to self, and you're open to attack now.
That's just the way it is. Just a second. I have my computer fan spinning, and I ask. So, this planet has a infection, has a sort of fungal overgrowth of negativity.
That's allowed to be here I think they're trying to. The Council of Sound. My only way that I can think of my puny little brain about why they're doing it like this is this group really does need harshness to pay attention. So, and we're stuck here with it. So it's like, but you can't skip it. There are other places that aren't getting the gnarly ass impact that it's going to be delayed. I talk about that quite a bit. You can move to Mexico, use the FEIE if you work remotely, and you can get all your federal taxes refunded. You can live in Mexico or another country for free if you're self-employed or working for a U.S. company.
And that's a whole long discussion. 1216, Don asks, are they 4D? Ross said they're majority 4th density. Orion. 1217, does an individual in 4th density normally appear, or are they normally invisible to us? It's a very good question, and actually it would take a very long discussion, actually, to explain it, and I don't fully understand it. Ra's reply, the use of the word, quote, normal, is one which befuddles the meaning of the question. Let us rephrase for clarity. The 4th density is, by choice, not visible to 3rd density. It is possible for 4th density to be visible. However, it's not the choice of the 4th density entity to be visible, due to the necessity for concentration upon a rather difficult vibrational complex, which is the third density you experience. Now, this is also a little confusing, obviously. The fourth density, by choice, is not visible to third density. What do you mean? The
Okay, so what he's talking about here is this fourth density being. So it seems to be that there's another type of atomic level of vibration that exists either at a higher spiritual density, or it's not clear how this works. It's not really clear, but I know this is how it works basically. I mean, the physics is not clear. I don't understand it, but this is how it works. So I was up at ECETI, and they have all these photographs of these beings. They say show up and we'll talk to you and tell you things and stuff. And when they try and take pictures of them, they're always blurred out like this. And sometimes they're fake. Sometimes they're fake, but other times it's actually real. And here is some of the photos. So the reason why they're blurry is because based on your internal orientation, this is so that these positive beings do not break the law of free will against people who are polarized negative. So the people who are polarized negative will see these as fake. They will see these as someone just not focusing the camera and or doing double exposure or whatever. So that's how they get away with this. This is what they tell me is, and this is kind of how I see it as well. So if you're positively oriented, you'll be able to see that some of these images are real. And this, I don't know how to explain this, but so I can tell that some of these images are real. Like this one is real, this one is real, this one is real, and the other ones I don't know. They don't look. They don't know. This is fake. So some of them are real and some of them are fake, and that's also part of it. And that is how they can actually show themselves. And up at ECETI, I'm going to do another video about this where I was sitting right next to a guy and I was seeing all kinds of very interesting things, which I'll do a video about. Very like, what the hell is all this in front of me, dude? What? And the guy's sitting right next to me, and he sees nothing. He sees nothing. He does tell me he believes I'm seeing it because he's been up there a bunch of times. It was my first time up there, and my only time. And he says other people have been around me and see this stuff, and I know these people, and they're not liars, and they have no reason to tell me. They haven't really told anybody else. I haven't told anybody, so I've told a couple people, but I'm like, whatever. This is weird. So he's sitting right next to me. He's like, I know people up here see that stuff, and I don't see it, but I know you are, and I was definitely seeing it. So, and I did the tests where I would look away and I would look back because I'm a psychedelic psychonaut. So there's certain things that are just distortions that happen because of the chemical reactions, and there's other things where you're actually opening up and seeing these other entities. And the good way to test that stuff is if you look away, and if it persists, then yeah, it's a hallucination. But if you look away and it goes away, and you look back and it starts to reappear, probably not a hallucination. It's probably something there, and that's just how I see it. You can argue with me in the comment section. Anyway, so let's continue.
The dimension, or the beings in the dimension. Density by choice is not visible to third density. What do you mean? The dimension, or the beings in the dimension? Well, the beings in the dimension is a dimension. Outer and inner is one. And that's why this appears to be confusing, which it still is to me. But you see, Ra speaks from the perspective of unity, the law of one. So when they say the fourth density is by choice not visible, it seems to me it's the same as the fourth density, the choice. We're talking about the choice of the fourth density entity when Ra used the phrase the fourth density is not visible by choice. The dimension is the beings of that dimensional consciousness.
I don't know. He's getting a little confusing here. I definitely know that there's another dimension or density that we can see. I'm not gonna say dimension. Take that out. Density. There's another density that we can see when our third eye gets opened up, when our pineal gland gets opened up, either artificially or with years of practice in a monastery, where you're not being afraid of anything and everything's cool for a long, long time. So it is possible to artificially pop your eye open and see these things. most people have no training and no understanding of what they're looking at, so they have a hard time deciding if it's real or not. And they also have their own traumas that they're dealing with. But uh, I've done about 25 or so. I don't remember. I've lost count. Ayahuasca ceremonies and that, and also DMT. I've tried it a bunch of times, and it pops your third eye open, and you can see the entities. And it was great to be confirmed that that's a thing that's actually real. That there these entities exist, and a lot of these religious faiths talk about these entities, being the reptiles and these weird bug creatures, and all kinds of strange things. Like a lot, I saw a lot of stuff that was like Native American. It was like, well, okay, now I understand why they have that weird buffalo head thing in the that weird shape. I saw that thing. There's actually a being that looks like that. It's super stylized. Doesn't really look like a buffalo. It's some weird thing, and I don't know if that's how they want to look or how people have made them look, and then they go, I take that on as the thing. That's why Ra has this name. His name's not Ra. That the entity of 2 billion entities, that group, it's a fourth density group of I'm sorry, sixth density is this group that kind of collectivizes together, sort of like if you thought of the output of everybody on the internet as one being. That's sort of how they see themselves, and that's sort of how Ra communicates. And Ra is not his name. That was just the name that the people in Egypt, when they showed up, gave him because they were like worshiping the sun, which is cool. I mean, it's the same. Ra was like, yeah, that's a being. It's kind of a god for you guys. And so they were already worshiping that. So when the Ra group showed up, they're like, oh, it's just them. Now it's like, well, sort of, kind of in a way, yeah, we are all part of the same thing. So that's why that got confused, and they were just like, just call us Raw. It's fine. We're those guys. Okay. And I just quickly, Raw comes. They went through this transition from third to fourth density about 2 billion years ago on Venus. So, and they are karmically connected with us because they were a cohesive group, and we are a non-cohesive group, and that's where they keep screwing up. And they're like, keep messing up, and they're trying to fix their errors, and that's why they're communicating at all with us.
Loka, like Bhumi, is the beings of that dimensional consciousness. Loka, like Bhumi, Bhumisu, or Kama Loka, Rupa Loka, Rupa Loka.
So he's bringing the Buddhist stuff. If you want to cross-reference
Buddhism, Kama, desire, Rupa, form, Arupa, formless, Loka, world. It's understood at a more subtle level of analysis that there's no dimension but for the beings of that dimensional consciousness. Were there no beings of that dimensional consciousness, there'd be no dimension, but yet just a potential. There's potentia and kinesis, or potential and kinetic. The potential of 7 dimensions, is inherent to light. The kinetic manifestation of the 7 dimensions depends on the evolution of beings of those dimensional levels of consciousness. And so there's no dimension. The 4th density that by choice is not visible is equivalent to the 4th density entity that by choice is not visible. It seems like that to me. Logic decision. It seems like that to me. So to say the 4th density by choice, you could say by logoic decision, it's not native to 4th densities to be visible to 3rd density, because 4th density form, obviously, is not flesh and blood and of the table, the elemental table.
Right, it's a different elemental. It seems like it's a different elemental table, but it also crosses into our elemental table. It's until we are there, we're not gonna really see it what it's like, but it definitely has a physical component. It's just at a higher frequency. That seems to be what's going on at the 4th density stuff, and it seems to be able to. They seem to be able to skim over time in some way. It's very odd.
The table of elements, physical, material elements. It's not physical. It's non-physical. All right. So 4th density is not physical. Thus, it's not visible. It's invisible. But it's choice. By choice. By whose choice? By logoic choice. 4th density is naturally by the self-structuring of light into 7, and the nature of that 7. Number 4, 4th ray, is simply not visible to those in 3rd ray body. Okay. By that logoic choice, or the very intrinsic nature of light that divides to 7, and the 7 have a certain relation to each other. Each of the 7 have a relation. Each of the 7 rays, 7 dimensions, have a relation, internal relations.
So he's talking about the physics and metaphysics of the dimensions, densities, of the densities, not dimensions, the densities. and he's just sort of trying to figure out how these interact with each other, and it's not clear how they are, but they do. How? It's not clear, but they do.
So by logoic choice, by logoic proclamation, by logoic doing, 4 is not visible to those incarnate in 3. Likewise, fourth density entities also don't choose to be visible. They're by default invisible, and therefore they don't normally then choose to become visible. Why? Well, there's really, number one is non-infringement. They don't want to appear around us. But number two, the necessity for concentration upon a rather difficult vibrational complex, which is third density. 3D as a rather difficult vibrational complex. Damn right. There's a big problem. That's why the Logos put the veil in the first place, or extended the veil, because the Logos was having a problem with its third ray.
Yeah, so he's talking about the veil. So the veil, he's talking about the veil of forgetting. So as we are incarnate into the third density, we forget about our previous existences completely. And that was put there by the Council of Saturn or the creator. I'm not really sure exactly who put this there. Someone did. And we forget about our past. And we start here very defenseless, and we're supposed to try to learn humbleness and togetherness. And by living in these bodies, which are very fragile as fuck. And so we're supposed to learn that here. Our other bodies that we've had from other places are a lot more tough and gnarly, especially that 50% Martian race that is here. They've had very vicious bodies and very hard to do, and could take a lot of damage. And they were definitely bellicose and not wanting to get together.
I would believe. And so, because the Logos was having a problem with its third ray.
Right. So we were coasting along. The group here. Okay. The group here was coasting along and not making any progress. So the creator / council Saturn, whoever the hell, decided with this group, they're going to try and ramp it up for the run up. They're going to try and get this group to graduate. So they're putting in catalyst that's more than normal for this group so they could snap out of it.
I would believe. And so, if you really want to understand the root problem here, you'd have to look at the relationship between, basically it's a mathematical issue. The sevenfold division of light with its photonic energy levels of discrete levels of 7, and it's not necessarily even 7, it's because 1 and 7, first ray, 7th ray are not quite the same as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's an essential difference. But you'd have to get into what this document ends with, Dewey Larson. The relations between space-time, time-space, and the 7 photonic levels of 7 rays energy, and what the characteristics of third ray are all about. There's something intrinsically difficult about third ray.
So third ray, third density, same thing. That's what he's talking about.
So the fourth density entity, though Ra was saying that after harvest or dimensional shift, fourth density entities would have to learn to become invisible so that they're not visible and don't infringe. So there's possible contradiction there, or something that I can't resolve, and it's a long matter. So the metaphysics of 7-dimensional nodal ray energies as a 7-fold division of light, which is intrinsic to light, which you could call logoic choice. Then 2 fourth density entities apparently are default invisible, but then there's some reason why they have to, quote, learn to become invisible or something after dimensional shift.
I'm sure they have to be trained not to be adherent. Well, if you're already making progress on the service to all path, the material realm will become less and less interesting, but only as far as you can communicate the positive path ideals. So I'm sure it's part of the process of hey, this non-infringement thing, you probably already understand it already. And yeah, positives will, if you're asked to leave a party, the positives will leave. They actually won't even go, right? A positive person will not, if they're gonna feel like they're gonna be doing harmfulness by going there, they won't go there. So it's that kind of thing. It's like we're by non-infringing, we allow the free will soul progression of the individual to choose the path, how they want to deal with free will, whether they want to go against the grain or for the grain. That's really what's going on.
And there's a fourth density civilization surrounding the planet. There's probably some particular learning to make sure that they're not visible in certain ways that they naturally would be. But meanwhile, fourth density entities, to become visible after they are not visible, would need to be concentrating on a certain vibrational complex or on 3D complex.
Okay, so that's about all I want to talk about there about the visibility of these beings and how they can, just some more introduction to Law of One, and then talk about Scott Mandelker a little bit. I'm gonna do more stuff on this when it comes up, but yeah, he's the probably the closest. He's the one that makes the most sense for this material because he ties everything else in together. The people that are super into the Law of One in general, they rarely infused with the new age stuff. Like they can't let that go. And Law of One has some new age stuff in it, new age stuff, but not a lot. And it's actually quite different than what the mainstream stuff goes. So I probably piss off a lot of these Law of One groups, and I have tried to make friends with some of them, and I'm sorry, I just don't understand where they're coming from. A lot of the times, I think they want to get on the ships. I think they really do. I think they really do want to get on the ships, or they really want to pop into the fourth density, and it's just they're totally missing how it's gonna happen. Anyway, I'm Chris Lapidolos Tastes Yapos. This is Man Free World, and thanks for watching to the end.